All right, today we're going to dive into a huge shift in education. We're talking about moving away from constantly trying to fix things for students and instead moving toward intentional, inclusive design from the very beginning. Let's kick things off with a feeling that I'm sure is pretty familiar to a lot of you.
I mean, if you're a teacher, you know this feeling, right? It's that constant juggling act. You're trying to meet the needs of every single student, and it just feels like you're running around in circles, making changes on the fly. That feeling of always being one step behind, that's the exact problem we're going to tackle.
So let's actually put a name to this traditional way of doing things. We'll call it the fixing cycle. It's this reactive loop that's been the default in schools for, well, decades. And honestly, it often feels like the only way to handle a classroom full of so many different learners.
Here's how it usually plays out, and I bet this sounds familiar. First, you teach the lesson to the whole group, and you kind of just wait. Wait for a problem to show up. Then, step two, you watch to see who's having a hard time. And finally, you jump in to fix it with some kind of special accommodation. You're basically playing educational whack-a-mole, and man, is it exhausting.
But here's the thing about this wait and fix approach, this retrofitting, it comes with some real hidden costs. It's not just that it's inefficient for you, it accidentally puts a giant spotlight on what a student can't do, not what they can. And it creates a system where some students only get that extra support after they've already started to fall behind. That's a huge equity gap, and it's built right into the process itself.
Okay, so if that's the problem, what do we do about it? Well, the answer, and this is pretty cool actually, comes from way outside the world of education. It's a powerful idea called the curb cut effect. So this idea of universal design, it actually got its start in architecture with a really simple but honestly profound idea. Instead of building a building and then having to add a ramp later for wheelchair users, what if you just designed the entrance to be accessible for everybody right from the start? It's all about building that access right into the blueprint. And the curb cut is like the classic example of this. You know, those little slopes at the end of a sidewalk? They were originally created specifically for people in wheelchairs. But think about it. Who else uses them? Parents pushing strollers, people pulling luggage, kids riding bikes or scooters? The lesson here is huge. When you design for the people at the margins, you actually end up making things better for everyone. That's the curb cut effect. And that right there, that's the big switch we're talking about. We're trying to move away from reactive support, patching up problems for just a few students after the fact, and instead embracing proactive design. That's where flexibility and access are just woven into the lesson from the get-go for everyone. This quote from CAST, the organization that really pioneered universal design for learning, man, this just changes everything. It completely reframes how we look at learning challenges. The issue isn't that a student has a deficit. It's that the design of the lesson itself has created a barrier that doesn't need to be there. The problem isn't the person, it's the environment. So that all sounds great in theory, right? But what does this actually look like in a classroom? Well, Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, gives us a really practical framework. And it's not some new checklist of things to do. It's more like three powerful lenses you can look through when you're planning any lesson. So let's break down these three core principles. First up, we've got engagement, which is all about the why of learning. How do we make learning feel purposeful and motivating? This could be offering choices in what kids read or connecting the lesson to a real-world problem. Then there's representation, the what of learning. This just means we need to offer information in more than one way. Maybe you provide a text and an audio version. And finally, action and expression, the how of learning. This is all about giving students options for how they show you what they know. It doesn't always have to be a written essay, right? And listen, this is probably the most crucial thing to get about this whole section. UDL isn't about just finding more apps or more worksheets to add on. It's a fundamental change in how you plan. Before you even step in front of the class, you're asking yourself, how can I design this so everyone is engaged? How can I represent this information so everyone can access it? And how can I give everyone a way to express what they've learned? Okay, so right about now, a lot of people start to worry. They think, wait a minute. Does all this flexibility mean we're just lowering the bar? Are we reducing rigor? And the answer to that is a hard no. Absolutely not.
This point is so important. Giving the student an audiobook doesn't make the text any easier. It just removes the barrier of decoding the words so they can actually focus on the real goal, like analyzing the author's argument. Think of it this way. Access is about clearing the path to the top of the mountain. It's not about making the mountain smaller.
So, in a universally designed classroom, some things are totally solid, non negotiable. The learning goal, the standards, they are firm. They do not change. But how kids get there, that's where we get flexible. The materials they use, the methods they learn with, and the ways they're assessed, all of that can be flexible. The destination is the same for everyone, the journey is just allowed to look different. So really, the whole logic of UDL boils down to this one simple idea. We know, it's a fact, that the learners in any given classroom will be variable. That's not a surprise, it's the norm. So if we can predict that variability is coming, then our designs have to have predictable flexibility built right in from the start. We plan for it. And that leaves us with this one last, really powerful question to think about. When a student is struggling, our first instinct is usually to look at the student and wonder what's wrong. But universal design for learning challenges us to look in the mirror first. It asks us to stop and consider, where did my design create a barrier? And what can I change about that design for next time? It's a shift in perspective that, honestly, changes everything.